What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Talking Jets with Tigo. My name is Tigo, and today we're going to be doing a full game preview and breakdown of what to expect from the New York Jets against the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau this coming Sunday. We're going to talk defense, offense, special teams. We're going to talk everything and how the New York Jets, the game plan, and what we should do and how we can walk away with a win. Let's start talking on the defensive side of the ball, but before we even start talking about that, let's talk about some overbearing story arcs and storylines that are going on in Green Bay this year. I think primarily the biggest thing that we've got to look at is they don't have Davante Adams, and that's a big deal. You lose your main wide receiver target, and it looks like they have not been able to replicate or even find someone to take on that same kind of workload or even spread that workload out and be it effectively. They haven't figured it out. The second thing going into this game that's working in favor for the New York Jets is they're coming back from a game in London. Now, they did lose in London against the New York Giants, and that might ultimately end up kind of working against the Jets. This team is going to come in motivated and ready to play, but that's how I want to beat a team. I want to beat a team when they're motivated. I don't want to beat a team when they're on their back foot and they're relaxing or anything like that. But this team this week during practices and all of this stuff is going to be dealing with jet lag. And they're going to be dealing with the transition from being 5 or 6 hours ahead and then coming back to the States. So you're hoping that their practices this week are going to be ineffective and that they can't really prepare for the New York Jets. The other underrated storyline is the fact that Robert Saleh talks to Matt LaFleur every day. They talk every day. Mike LaFleur, our offensive coordinator on Mondays, doesn't just when he's breaking down the film, he doesn't just watch our game tape. He watches our game tape. He watches Kyle Shanahan's game tape at San Francisco, and he watches his brother's game tape in Green Bay. We should know the ins and outs of this offense and this defense like the back of our hands because these guys are such close friends. These guys run very similar systems that Mike LaFleur is doing the right thing and trying to steal ideas from all of the other people in the NFL that run similar schemes that he does. And he watches this offense play consistently. My expectation is that Mike LaFleur is going to be a big part of the defensive game plan because of how much tape he watches of his brother's offense. Now let's hop into specifics of the defense and how this defense can really limit Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. And I think that starts off by we have to limit Aaron. And I don't mean Aaron Rodgers, I mean Aaron Jones. He is the scarier of the two Aarons going into this game. And it's because he has been able to do whatever he wants against a lot of teams. There isn't a wide receiver threat. There isn't a tight end threat. This offensive line is actually pretty good, and they're creating space for him, and they're really running the ball well. So the game plan kind of needs to be a very similar thing to what we did in Miami, just altered a little bit. Let me take a step back and explain what I mean by that. In Miami, a lot of what we were able to do was create pressure and QB hits and sacks on the quarterback via coverage. Our defensive line actually wasn't winning a whole lot of reps. They were getting pretty stuffed, but the problem is that when you ask an offensive line and pass protection to cover for more than 2.5 seconds, their protection breaks apart. And so we were forcing, by dropping 7 or 8 guys into coverage on a consistent basis against Miami because they have 2 elite wide receivers there, we were creating coverage sacks and coverage pressure and coverage QB hits, which is a huge big deal. And that being said, we can do a very similar thing against Green Bay, but in the opposite. This wide receiver core in Green Bay is absolutely atrocious. The fact that their number one target is Randall Cobb is a travesty. Randall Cobb is a great number 2 wide receiver. He should not be a high volume 1. They have failed to find a number 2 wide receiver in that team that can really help with production at all. They thought that they would be able to get it done by a committee. That's why they drafted Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. It hasn't worked out for them at all. And when you look at the New York Jets defensively, especially in the defensive back room, we are elite. in the cornerback room, but we're actually getting really good play in these last 2 games from LaMarcus Joyner and Jordan Whitehead. So what has to happen for this team is we need to be able to cover these wide receivers for 3 or 4 seconds without having to drop 7 or 8 guys into coverage. If we can stack, let's say, 6 guys in the box consistently, and we can drop 5 guys back because we like to play the nickel and the dime and have Will Parks or Michael Carter II there to cover the tight end or wide receiver respectively, depending on the personnel package the offense throws. If we can cover and play 5 guys in the back well, then we're going to really, really frustrate Aaron Rodgers and really, really frustrate this offense, because they're not going to be able to get the ball going, because hopefully we'll be able to stop Aaron Jones before he makes his explosive plays. The real thing that we need to take advantage of the fact is that Aaron Rodgers is temperamental, petty, and kind of just a jerk sometimes, you know what I mean? And if we can continuously hit him and bully him and sack him, he will get frustrated. It will boil over into the sideline, and that's it. We can wreck the game the Green Bay Packers have planned offensively. Now let's talk about the offense. What can the New York Jets do on offense to take advantage and beat this defense? The first thing that I want to talk about on the New York Jets offense is that this may seem like, I think this is going to be the first time where we're going to have an offensive line that's going to go back-to-back games the whole unit. And that's a great, great thing. Hopefully, we're going to get some better chemistry between our left tackle and our left guard, and Dwayne Brown and Laken Tomlinson. Elijah Vera Tucker and Nate Herbig looked really good in the previous game. Connor McGovern has looked solid all year. And if we can continue to knock off the rust on that left side of the offensive line on Dwayne Brown and build that chemistry so that Laken Tomlinson can start performing at the level that we expect him to perform at, this offensive line should take a step forward. And that's good because, one, this defensive line isn't that scary. Outside of Rashawn Gary, who's an absolute threat, and the guy's legit, there isn't really anyone else on this defensive line that I'm super, like, crazy scared about. Kenny Clark is good, but he's not like, oh my gosh, like I trust Connor McGovern and Nate Herbig to like one-on-one and win their matchups there. The real thing that's going to have to happen is we're going to probably have to double team or chip Rashawn Gary, and that starts with, I think Mike LaFleur needs to continue to scheme up the offensive line with help. They're still knocking off rust there. We need to scheme up good offensive line protection, just because like we're not getting super great blitz recognition and coverage from our running back, specifically from Michael Carter. And so until that can get better, we should scheme up the offensive line to be better. If the offensive line is better, the rest of the plan falls right into play, right? We saw what Zach looked like when he had a clean pocket and when he could step up into the pocket and make throws without having his happy feet. He was accurate, he was consistent, and that's what we want out of him. And that's what we need to see from Zach this game. We need to see the continuation of the growth that we saw from games 4 and 5 from him. And he needs to be safe and efficient with the football. No more turnovers. Let's get that out of there, especially when we're talking about this secondary in Green Bay that is absolutely abysmal. Outside of Jair Alexander, they don't have a single player that really should be a starting caliber player in the NFL. Eric Stokes hasn't looked good and kind of looks like a flop of a pick in the first round. Maybe he turns it around, maybe he doesn't, but it just isn't working for him right now. Adrian Amos, I think this fan base in Green Bay is ready to punt him to the moon. Darnell Savage is absolutely not playing well. Again, it's these first-round picks that they're getting and that they're playing in their secondary that's supposed to help them, and it's just not working out. And that continues into the linebacker room. Quay Walker hasn't looked great, and that's another first-round pick that they spent on a linebacker. And then Devondre Campbell has been okay, I guess, right? But again, this back seven isn't that lethal. This defense isn't that lethal, specifically when you take into comparison the level of play that we have on offense. Our pass catchers, and I say pass catchers specifically because I don't mean just wide receivers. I mean people who can catch balls, is absolutely insane. Insane when you look at how the depth that we have. Let's just start with the wide receivers. Braxton Berrios and Jeff Smith. Those are our two worst guys, obviously, right? But then you got Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, Corey Davis. These guys are lethal. I think each one of those guys has over 200 receiving yards. I think Corey Davis is one yard away from having a 300 receiving yards already, and that's because we're spreading the ball out really, really evenly. No one is getting a lion's share of the targets, and that's absolutely what we should do. We should not let Green Bay put Jair Alexander on one guy because we know that we're going to be targeting that one guy. We drafted Garrett Wilson. We signed Braxton Berrios. We drafted Elijah Moore. We signed Corey Davis to make sure that we are lethal, to make sure that we have depth, and to make sure that we don't have to focus on one guy like Green Bay did last year with Devontae Adams. And so that's just the wide receivers. Let's continue on with the pass catchers. Breece Hall, Michael Carter, Tyler Conklin, CJ Uzomah, Jeremy Ruckert. Zach Wilson caught a touchdown pass. Don't forget that. Again, we've got a lot of guys who can catch the ball effectively. And if we're spreading the ball out evenly, not giving anyone a lion's share of the targets, we've got a lot of playmakers. And if Zach continues to be careful and safe with the football, that spells for disaster. And then here's the other big part is the run game. The run game is finally getting going. And it's because we're starting to play the games where we have a lead, where we don't have to rely on the quarterback's arm consistently. And I want to keep Breece involved in the offense. Breece should be on track. Like, after this game, we should make sure that his numbers average to the point to where he's going to have 1,000 rushing yards and 1,000 receiving yards by the end of this season. Breece Hall is that good, and he should be used excellently. I love the personnel package where we have both running backs out in the field. It gives us a lot of options. It gives us a lot of versatility because you can break that out into a pass game. You can break that out into a run game. You can do whatever you want because Breece Hall and Michael Carter are an insane 1-2 punch in the running back room. And then in the wide receiver room, we have an insane 1-2-3 punch in Corey Davis, Garrett Wilson, and Elijah Moore. And so love to see that. And that's how we can really win on offense. And now the other thing that I want to talk about really briefly before I end the video is special teams. Green Bay has been struggling on special teams, and the Jets have not. The Jets have been excellent on special teams. We need to continue that trend. We need to continue to play special teams at a high level and really force some mistakes against this against this Green Bay Packers special teams unit that is struggling. Braden Mann is doing excellent. Greg Zuerlein is doing excellent. Our whole special teams unit in Jeff Smith and Justin Hardy are doing great things on there. Ashton Davis, Hamza Nasruddin, Jamian Sherwood. These guys are Brandon Echols. How could I forget Brandon Echols? These guys are being incredibly effective and incredibly productive on the special teams unit, and we got to keep that up. Guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let me know what we should do to beat the Green Bay Packers. And last but not least, go Jets.